Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a reading for Virgo rising, or if you have significant Virgo placements in your chart and are needing a neutral energy to help balance masculine and feminine within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Virgo, it's a really interesting reading because it feels like there's multiple energies within this reading today, but obviously I'm going to focus on you. We're starting off here. The overall context is the Sun, the Hierophant, and the Eight of Cups. So these cards here talk to me about like seeking something, like seeking clarity is kind of how it's coming through to me, because with this one here, it's kind of looking like this Eight of Cups as being sort of like an unknown, perhaps, or like it's like you're needing to make a decision maybe, or perhaps just like trying to find direction was kind of what was coming through here. Or there's like, I was just seeing sort of like this, like a graph kind of just showing like a flat line, which is kind of just talking to me as being a place perhaps that's very stable, and but it could also be read as being sort of an energy of stagnation. So it could be that there's not a lot of change happening right now in your life, and it's like I feel like there's something here about like seeking guidance or clarity about perhaps like what you may need to be doing in order to bring about that sort of change or whatever it is. And I feel like Virgo, you're very close to it. It's kind of just like there's perhaps here with like the Temperance and the Wheel of Fortune, some sort of timing element, because it looks to me with the sort of Muse of Emotions and the Knight of Emotions that there is something coming in terms of like the emotions. There's a lot of water in your reading today, so it could be that there's like a water sign or something like that who's coming in to clarify something for you, or to like provide insight, or just like move energy is kind of how it's coming through, like shift energy, because of that sort of idea of like the flat line, like a stagnation, whereas like the water is much more flowing, if that makes sense. So kind of that's sort of the overall context. What's really interesting here though, Virgo, is that I feel like you're actually in a really positive sort of energy of attraction is kind of how it's coming through, because you have here the raccoon and the fire ant and the tarantula and the fox, and the cosmic egg in the middle. So how I'm seeing this, because it's kind of looking like, so the cosmic egg I'll come back to, but like these energies are very similar is kind of how it's coming through, where it's like the raccoon and the fire ant are coming through as being perhaps like a more, not negative, but perhaps like fear-based, or perhaps more like a pessimistic way of seeing a certain situation versus more of like a beneficial or positive way of seeing a situation. Because so the fox and the raccoon, these are sort of like mirror images of one another is kind of how I'm seeing it, where the raccoon comes in with the energy of like being shy or not wanting to step out into the light, whereas the fox is very clearly in the light. And also it comes through with this partnership kind of energy. I feel like there's somebody in this reading today for you, Virgo, who has your back is kind of what was coming through here. Someone who has your back, or someone who's like watching your back is kind of how it's coming through. Because I feel like what it is that you're doing, especially with the raccoon, there may be like this new expansion or something that you're perhaps wanting to go towards, but there's like a timidness, or not quite feeling like super confident with it perhaps, or something like that. Especially with these two, right? The fire ant to me always represents sort of like something that needs your attention but is causing anxiety or discomfort. And with the tarantula, this talks about having to leave a comfort zone, and because of that there's discomfort, right? So both of these are energies of discomfort that I feel like you, Virgo, are making some sort of step forward, or some sort of like something is coming in is kind of how it's feeling that will allow you to take a step forward. but there's like an anxiety or timidness around it, and it's like someone here has your back is what's coming through, which is so interesting. Okay, so we'll get into the actual reading part. I did pull these ones as well, but I feel like I'm spending way too much time on the bottom of the deck. But anyways, like with this Bravery Oceans, like I feel like you are taking a really important step forward, especially with these two cards coming out, the Home Earth and the Passion Soul, that I feel like somebody has your back or is like watching your six, if that's like the proper terminology, right? Like they're keeping an eye out for what's behind you, or they're behind you in some way, or perhaps like there's a lot of that messaging coming through in sort of the later cards, so I will come back to that. With this Gravity Groundedness card, this one comes through as being sort of like a heaviness, especially with the first card coming out here is the Silent Snow. So I feel like this is talking about a very sort of like energy of stagnation, that there's not that much happening. With the silence, it's like things are very steady. It kind of feels like for you in your energy, or that you're desiring a change is kind of what was coming through with this. Desiring a change, especially with this moth here coming out underneath. So it's kind of like seeking clarity, or seeking warmth, or seeking a flame. Right? So it could be like motivation, could be seeking some sort of new inspiration is kind of what's coming through. It's like there's just this energy of like very stable, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It just feels like in this energy, it feels kind of like there's a change that is being sought in whatever aspect of your life this applies to, which is really interesting. And I feel like it is arriving very quickly, because the first card out here, you have the Five of Voices, which is kind of like talking to me about like something new, or it's like, this is the flame. This is the thing that you're going towards, the new inspiration, the clarity perhaps, that's being presented to you, right? But it's kind of feels like this one I always see as being like focusing on the wrong thing perhaps, or like focusing on something that's causing, again, discomfort, right? Because it could be that like whatever this new thing is that's coming in is something that you've been asking for, I want to say, but it's kind of like you're looking, or perhaps there's a focus on sort of the discomfort that it brings, or I don't know, some aspect here that's causing sort of this like timidness, or like not wanting to step out into the shot or into the light is kind of how it's feeling. But I feel like the momentum is wanting to go in that direction. It's just kind of like with this one here, the Page of Inspiration coming out next, like this is the new inspiration, right? This is something that is absolutely meant for you, that is really, really positive, right? It's bringing all this color back into your environment. But it's kind of like, because I was clarifying why the Five of Voices, like why it's coming out with such a, not difficult, but it is tricky. It's kind of feeling like this anxiety where it's like this, and it came out with the moon, right? So if you just look at this, it's like this is perhaps an unknown with the moon. The moon has been coming out so much, and we just had a full moon in Sagittarius, so it could be related to that. Especially with Sagittarius, it's coming through kind of like travel, or like a new opportunity. So I feel like perhaps there's clarity, or like something new, some sort of new opportunity arriving. However, it's kind of coming in with this energy of like, perhaps there's a lot of, or not a lot, it doesn't feel like a lot of fear, but some fear. There's like some like trickiness, or like difficulty, or just light discomfort is what's coming through with this. It's not like a super uncomfortable, like really, it's not something really, like it's not a huge deal, right? It's not like a deal breaker or anything like that. It's just uncomfortable. I don't know how else to describe that. But I feel like what's wanting to shift here is kind of like going into whatever this situation with sort of like a playful and creative kind of energy with this Page of Inspiration, because this one talks to me always about like doing things because they're fun, not because there's any sort of obligation or like duty or responsibility. It's like just exploring for the sake of exploring. And I feel like that's what's wanting to come through here, because with the next cards coming out, you have this inner core solidity, which I always think is, or I think is interesting, because the whole like idea of solidity, like something that's very solid and stable. But what's represented in this card here is very much not that. Like it always talks to me about like breaking something open, or like a very significant shift or change, perhaps of like a thinking pattern, right? Especially because it's coming out with this earthworm. That both of these, like especially with these hands here, it was just really bringing me back into sort of like a more like childlike or playful kind of energy, especially with the earthworms. This one, because the earthworm in this deck represents sort of like trying something new, right? Like learning something new. Whenever you learn something new, there are sort of like kinks to work out, is kind of how it's feeling. But that there's so much for you to discover here. Like that's part of where all the fun is kind of what's coming through. The working out the kinks is where all the fun is how that's feeling to me. And especially with this inner core, it's bringing in a lot of like childlike energy, like playing in the dirt is kind of what's coming through, or like very playful energy. Whatever you did as a child that was very fun, or just like getting your hands dirty, or like perhaps just working with your hands, like something creative, right? It could be something like that, like some sort of opportunity that is presenting itself to you that has to do with sort of like nourishing perhaps like an inner child aspect of self, or something like that. It doesn't have to be that, but it is sort of bringing up this sort of like playfulness, right? That's what's coming through here. But I feel like there's something really unexpected about whatever this thing is, because so first of all, it's like wanting to go, like an opportunity presenting itself to you that perhaps has fear associated with it, but you're being asked to approach it with a very playful energy is kind of how it's coming through. But it's so much more is kind of what's coming through with this, because you have the North expansion card, right? So this is also bringing in a lot of travel energy with the horse as well, because this reminds me of the Chariot card in the tarot deck. So this is feeling like, and again, more sort of like Cancerian moon energy. So take that if it applies to you. But it's kind of feeling like whatever this opportunity is, it's an expansion, absolutely. Perhaps will require movement of some sort, or travel, or if it's not that, it just could be like metaphorical, energetic kind of movement forward. It's also bringing in, especially when I see the horse, it comes in with sort of like routine, reliability, and also like determination and discipline, right? So it could be, which is interesting, because it's kind of like there's been this really stable or perhaps stagnant aspect of your life, but it's kind of like something explodes, something arrives that changes perhaps that baseline is kind of how it's coming through. And then you reach another sort of plateau is kind of how it's coming through. With the High Priestess, which is really interesting, because I feel like this is somebody else, actually, how it's coming through. It's kind of like there's somebody else. How I was seeing this, it was kind of looking to me like, you know how, again, with the children, like when kids sort of play with a magnifying glass with the sun rays, right? Like they sort of like shine a light on or highlight some aspect of, I don't know, whatever. It's like using sort of a magnifying glass to intensify or magnify the light rays and focus it in on something is kind of what's coming through. So it could be that there's somebody coming in to magnify an aspect of your life, perhaps that is needing a change or something like that. I feel like it's encouraging you to take action on this, especially with this. It's kind of also feeling like this light, the intensity of light that's coming in, or information, or whatever it is, like this epiphany is kind of breaking down some sort of blockage, is kind of what's coming through, right? It's like it's shattering some sort of like blockage in whatever aspect. It's coming through with third eye, but it doesn't have to be. It could be there could be a blockage in any one of your chakras. It doesn't have to be third eye. Whatever area of your life that's been sort of stagnant, it's clearing that blockage is kind of what's coming through in order to like bring you up to the next level. But at the same time, it's like once you get up to the next level, it will require sort of this, the horse endurance kind of like determination maybe, or reliability, or what's the other word? Resilience is what's coming through, especially with this endurance rock card coming out next. Because this card always talks to me about like resilience, right? Like having to maintain, like hold your ground, remain very steady, because the environment that you're in perhaps is not necessarily one that is hospitable, was what was coming through, or it's just having to maintain boundaries is always what I see with this one, right? It's like you're expanding, you're going to the next level. There's obviously perhaps anxiety about that expansion, but I feel like there's somebody here who's kind of like showing you, or just like, it's coming through with like a magnifying glass, like focusing the light on perhaps one aspect, so to like keep your focus maybe, or something like that, especially with the horse, right? It's like putting blinders on so that you can focus on where you're headed and not getting distracted by sort of all of this stuff in the background is kind of what's coming through, right? Because there are things that perhaps will cause anxiety if you were to look towards them, right? But it's kind of like this energy here, the High Priestess, especially with this sort of like hood, they're perhaps like guiding you by putting blinders on so that you can focus on what you are moving towards, right? The energy of the expansion, which is really interesting. I feel like what's coming out next, because you have here the Black Egg, which I love so much. This card represents the throat chakra. So again, it's talking about sort of like this, I always see sort of like a force field, right? So it attracts everything that is the same, and it also repels anything that's not the same. So that's sort of how I'm seeing this, is that whatever this process is, I feel like there's an energy here that's helping to sort of focus your energy so that it's quote unquote protected from whatever the distracting energies are, and keeping you focused on whatever it is you're needing to move towards, because you are supposed to be moving towards this expansion, but for some reason, which is often true about most things that are like new and expansive, that there is perhaps fears or anxieties or like trickiness, or like you needing to work out the kinks in order for that expansion to happen, right? Which is really interesting. But the good news is that, again, you have here the Hanged Man and the Three of Materials. I love this Hanged Man card so much, because it's feeling like just flipping your perspective in the opposite way, or it's like getting the clarity that you were looking for. It's getting the clarity that you're looking for, but at the same time, because it was flipped upside down, it was kind of just like shaking out, I don't know, like the dust, like shaking off the dust was kind of coming through with this, especially with this sort of like just like shaking out the rust. I don't know what those sayings are. You know what I mean though? There's like, it's like shaking off any sort of like the stagnation in order for you to move again. With the Three of Materials, this talks to me about like a path, right? A path forward. that includes others, right? There's a collaboration energy here that's really important. Like you are being supported by others, whether that's like your spirit guides or like actual people in your life. It's kind of feeling like both, that there's sort of this high priestess energy who's almost coming through as like a magnifying glass, or that they can, I don't want to use the word manipulate because that comes in with sort of a negative connotation, but it's like they have a very, it's like the lens in a camera or in your eye, right? You can change the amount of light that comes through in order to focus on things, right? So they can, this one here, or this could be you as well. This could be you developing this gift of like the ability to change like the diameter of the aperture to allow a certain amount of light to come through, or to focus on a particular goal, let's say, or a particular outcome, or whatever it is that you're working towards. So there's that kind of support coming in, right? Somebody who can focus the aperture, for lack of a better term, and it's providing a clear path forward. For you though, I think, Virgo, is that because the next couple cards that are coming through, that this first expansion, this like next step, whatever that next step is for you, or this next opportunity, feels kind of like it might be a bit of like a solitary journey, which is interesting. Because the Three of Materials is coming out right before this, as I'm saying this, so you have support. But again, with the thing about like they have your back, it's like you have to be the one to go out first, is what's coming through, because of the expansion and the endurance rock, right? Because this one almost feels like a breaking ground kind of energy. Like you're breaking ground, you're blazing the trail, or however you want to phrase that. Especially with this turtle here, which talks about a long journey, right? It's kind of like, I feel like you, Virgo, whatever this next step is, it's like you're stepping forward, but it's like you are the first one, is what's coming through, because you have here this combination of cards. The Hermit, which is obviously your card, and then the Nine of Emotions and the Nine of Materials. So you have 3 nines, right? 999, which is so interesting to me, paired with your card, right? All of this, and of course 9 is the energy of independence. So I feel like, especially with the Hermit, it's not necessarily isolation. However, it does kind of feel like you're having to go out ahead and break ground in whatever this is. It's like you have to be the one to plant whatever this seed is, or whatever it is, in this new space, right? It's like you're going off to expand or find new ground, or whatever it is. Something new and creative, right? Some sort of new opportunity. Having to do something first is kind of what's coming through. But there are people who have your back, or who are going to be following you once sort of more is established, is kind of what's coming through. Because this Nine of Emotions and the Nine of Pentacles, it's like, I feel like it's going to be very abundant very quickly. It's just kind of like you have to be the one to break ground, is kind of how that's feeling. But with this Nine of Pentacles, it's like it's going to attract a lot very quickly, is kind of what's coming through. And then what's coming in after that, right? It's like you have the World Cosmos and the Knight of Inspiration, which I feel like is talking about like very quick movement in completing whatever this vision is. Or this is sort of like the goal, or the thing that you're working towards. Because in this beginning part with the Five of Voices, sorry, I throw all the cards all over my table whenever I'm doing readings, so I get the cards lost. So this one here is sort of like this beginning, if you want to call it like a sprout or something like that, but then it quickly turns into this sort of like expansive, very fast moving world energy, meaning I feel like it's going to reach sort of like this peak completion abundance stage very, very quickly. And then you have here the Page of Materials and the Ace of Voices, which is kind of like, again, with the Ace of Voices, I always see this as looking back, right? It's like there's others, perhaps the Page of Inspiration, who are going to follow you, right? They're just right behind you is kind of how it's coming through. You have to be it's kind of feeling like you are the one who's moving forward, taking a step first, perhaps by yourself, but there are many others who are going to be following you or joining you in whatever this stage of your life is, or whatever this project is, perhaps, right? It's kind of like you're just being the one who is like establishing some form of stability is kind of how it's feeling. And then here with, I don't know why it's coming through as being sort of like the ones who are following you, the ones who are like coming with you on whatever this journey is. It's like there is perhaps a timidness on their part as well, right? So it could be that you're showing others like, or like, because with this 9 energy, it was kind of feeling like you're almost like waiting for them to come forward is kind of what's coming through. So it could be, take whatever resonates. I'm just talking about whatever comes through with these cards. It was feeling to me like there's a period of you being sort of alone, like in quotation marks, almost in this like kind of like state of meditation, perhaps, because you're waiting for the others to come forward is kind of how that's feeling, right? I feel like it's kind of both. It feels very much like there's both and energy happening here, where it's like you went in search of clarity and you found it is kind of what's coming through, or you're about to find it. And there's this period of like waiting here in this space for the others to come forward, because they're also sort of in this energy of like a timidness, not quite wanting to step forward. I feel like it will take a bit of bravery on their part, especially because it's coming through with the page energy and sort of this bravery, kind of like tentative steps forward, and the raccoon. So it's like they have your back, but at the same time, you also have their back is kind of what's coming through here. Anyways, Virgo, I'm going to end it there. We're going to move to the extended and talk about what else you may need to know about the situation. The link is in the description box. You'll also find my website if you're interested in a personal reading. If this message resonated with you, please subscribe, like, or leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.